everyone. Welcome to Recalling the Adventure, where we take our entrepreneurs back to where they began and recall how their adventures got started. Today, we have with us the founder of Skillmatics, Dhvanil Sheth. After his chartered accountancy, Dhvanil worked at Deloitte in audit and finance, and then on to the Boston Consulting Group as a management consultant before starting Skillmatics, a brand that is helping children build a range of skills through innovative games. So, if there's any blanks that I've missed here, Dhvanil, if you could fill them in.
No, man. I think that's a fairly accurate summary of at least the last 7-8 years, and sort of happy to talk a little bit more about what we're building. And yeah, I think you did a good job capturing it.
All right, brilliant. So, one of the things that I always like to ask entrepreneurs first is, especially someone as you, because you did work at Deloitte and BCG. So were you always leaning towards entrepreneurship, or did you initially plan on sort of climbing the ladder?
Great question. I think for me, I knew that I would eventually be, I wouldn't say entrepreneurship, but I would say in an operator role. I think I wouldn't distinguish between entrepreneurship and like a professional role. I would think that the way I look at it is there a bunch of advisory sort of jobs in the world, right? Whether it's consulting, finance, accounting, investment banking, and then there are a bunch of more operating roles where you actually get to like build things yourself and drive day-to-day operations and build businesses. I always saw myself on the latter side of things, and I think while the stints in consulting was super helpful, helped me. I almost think of it as finishing school. Great sort of early experience across multiple geographies, multiple types of industries, though I did spend a fair amount of time in consumer and retail.
Right.
So I do think it's good in terms of, building formative problem solving skills, communication skills, and so on. But at least for me, it was very clear that at least my long-term goal is to definitely be on more the execution side of things, and whether that's building my own business or or running a business. I think those were the areas that I was interested in, at least early on.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. Even I think so. I'm also going to be heading into consulting soon, and I think one of the main things that I sort of like and dislike about it is that you get to give all the advice, but you don't get to do the execution, which kind of takes your risk out of it, but it also makes you not as close to the problem as sometimes you'd like to be. But yeah, so how come, like one thing that is certain about climbing the ladder is that it's sort of a secure future. There is a lot of space to grow. So leaving all of that is quite a risk to start Skillmatics. So what promoted that?
I think there's no better time to ever be an entrepreneur. I think that's a starting a truth that was there about 3.5, 4 years ago when we started out, and it in fact holds even more true today. Yes, there is an element of risk. There's no doubt about it, but I actually see it a little differently, right? I think that today we're living in a world where there is great to an innovative problem. You are trying to solve something that's a real pain point for consumers, or you're building a very innovative business model. There is enough capital to support your idea. We were fortunate to get Sequoia to back us fairly early in our journey. They're a fantastic partner, but I mean, it's not just them, right? There are hundreds of VCs out there today, and I think that to a large extent takes away a lot of the risk associated with it, right? Because you have capital to help you build what you want. And I also think there's a maturing of the larger ecosystem and the business world today, where I think that, going forward, traditional roles and consult and so on. So not that those aren't great paths to take, but I think the point I'm trying to make is that even if tomorrow, your startup did not work, I think there's plenty of opportunity that arises by virtue of you having tried and built something yourself. So while there is risk, no doubt, I don't think there's ever a more exciting time for someone to take the plunge.
Right. No, I completely agree. And, since you mentioned the idea of VCs and obviously you've had a good personal experience in this. So when Sequoia decided to fund you guys, since that point, sort of how involved in the process do they generally get? I think a couple of things that entrepreneurs worry about most is either not losing touch with the brand so that the VC doesn't get too involved or too aggressive, but also looking forward to the expertise that they can bring.
Yeah, so I think that there isn't one broad brush answer for like the entire VC ecosystem. I mean, that would be simplifying it quite enormously. Um, I think as an entrepreneur, you need to be very clear on the kind of partner that you want to bring into your business, right? At the end of the day, most people celebrate funding and funding rounds, but actually if you almost flip it and say that you're selling a part of your company every time you raise money, you kind of think of things very differently. And so you need to be very clear on the kind of VC that you want to bring on board. And I think there are a wide variety of investors today, right? There's some who are very operationally involved. There are some who are quite hands off. It also actually varies quite significantly by the specific investor at the fund as well, right? Because
Right.
while there is a general culture at most VCs, every individual investor has their own style, right, and their own dynamic with working with entrepreneurs. At least in my case, I think I've had a fantastic relationship with my investors, right? Whether it's even my angels as well as the institutional investors we now have. They've been super supportive in helping think through strategy, what's the right go-to market play for us, helping leverage their extensive networks in building the team. I think it's been a very positive experience, and it's essentially what I want. I mean, it's been as involved as I've wanted it to be. I think again, knock on wood, I think that's a fortunate situation that we're in. Again, a maturing of the VC ecosystem in India today. I'm fairly sure that you'll find the right partner for whichever business you are building, right? So again, there's no broad brush answer, but I think it's something you can easily sense as you speak to the fund, the investor, speak to other portfolio companies of that investor or fund. A founder can make a pretty informed decision on the kind of partner they're bringing on board.
Yeah, I think I like the idea that it is about the particular investor that you end up getting at the fund, because I think that's not something that's spoken about enough. A lot of people say, like, you'll find countless talks online about choosing the right fund for you or choosing the right type of funding round, but no one really talks about how you can actually, within a fund, choose the right investor as well. So I think that's really interesting. So with that, let's move on to our first challenge, which is for you to describe Skillmatics in just 3 words.
All right. Describe the business of the brand. So I think that's I guess my one caveat.
Yeah, I think with what I've seen about Skillmatics, what's really interesting is the brand itself, with what you guys are trying to do. So let's go in that direction.
Sure. Educational, engaging, and trusted.
Okay, cool. That's pretty cool. So the reason why we ask people to do this is because it is actually so difficult sometimes, no matter how simple or elegant the idea is, to just describe it in 3 words. But yeah, you've done a good job. One thing I'd say that you might have missed is the children aspect of it, which I think is very important to Skillmatics as well.
Yes.
But yeah, so
but I think that's self-explanatory, right? I think the name is the brand name itself is quite obvious. Sort of the demographic that we're going after. So I wanted to sort of build on that in terms of how we want our, the parents who are our primary consumers, to think of us as a brand.
Fair enough. So the way that I see it is, you guys make really interesting sort of aptitude building and educational games for children. So these games, I mean, obviously it's going to be very difficult to develop them. So do you yourself play a role in that, or do you have developers that do?
Oh, no. So I don't. So I think just to start off, I think the larger vision for Skillmatics is to essentially be a destination for parents to help them build formative skills in their early years of their children, right? And whether that's learning resources that help a child build motor skills, or STEM products that help them build early problem solving skills. I think the idea is that over a period of time, we want the brand to essentially evolve to offer parents multiple products to solve any use case they may have, right? And I think that's kind of the larger plan with Skillmatics. Now, coming to obviously this development of each of the products. I think we have my co-founder Devanshi does that. She's far more creative. She's our creative director, and she alongside a couple of other folks we have on the product side of things, drive the actual development of the product. I think to the extent that I'm involved is really two things, right? One almost is helping to set the agenda and sort of set the roadmap in terms of which kind of product categories we want to enter into, what are the kind of products that we want to offer which fit the brand, and we do that obviously on the back of some very strong analytics engine that we built, which essentially allows us to kind of infer insights onto how consumers' demands are changing and so on. So one of the things we've taken is that, as a stance, is that we would like to make plastic-free products in an industry that's dominated by, 90% of the products are plastic-based. And so I think to that extent, I'm involved in helping work with the product team and my co-founder on setting the roadmap. And I approach it more from an analytics driven lens, whereas they approach it more from a creative lens. So that's always a great sort of healthy debate to have going on in the organization. And then I guess the only other part where I am involved is more around branding and marketing, right? Because that's the piece that I'm I guess a little more interested in, and perhaps slightly better than if I was to take a shot at product development. I think that's kind of my role, at least when it comes to the product life cycle.
Got it. So you speak of the sort of the larger vision for Skillmatics. Now, as far as I know, the children's industry, I mean, it's growing every day and it's huge right now. But a lot of the focus is on, these digital games and learning experiences that you see. I mean, I know a lot of my nieces and nephews that have iPads and they have loads and loads of games on that. So how does Skillmatics compete with this?
So I don't think it's an either or. I think, the important point is to frame it correctly, right? I think the way to look at it is that there are a large number of problem statements that parents have, right? And there are different products, whether physical or digital or even content, which address those use cases. So if I had to give you an example, like a common use case for a mother of a 3-year-old is how do I engage my child while I'm feeding them 4 times a day? Right? The product is essentially, YouTube content, right? I think the way we look at it is not from a physical versus digital versus we don't think of it that way. We think of what are the use cases that parents are looking for to solve their problems. And if the solution is physical, so be it. And that's at least the early products that we built have been in that realm. We're actually expanding the brand and expanding the ecosystem to even have digital products as well. So like I said, the long-term vision is to basically be a destination, right? So irrespective of the use case, you should be able to come to any one of our product platforms, whether on the physical side or on the digital side. But again, I just don't view the market as simplistic,
Yeah.
because it's not a substitute, right? It's not that the children are not using physical products and are only using digital products. In fact, the market of physical products, not counting like gaming, I'm talking about like if you take under 9 years of age, the actual market for physical products is significantly, it's $100 billion global industry,
Right.
which is significantly larger than the aggregate revenue of all digital players, like significantly. So so I think that while there may be a lot of products, I think the other important question, how much of that is like material revenue and so on. And
Right.
so I think there's several nuances to it, but again, I just to step back, we look at it more from the point of view of like, what's the best way to address this problem a parent has, and the ones that at least we've started addressing initially have been more use cases that are designed for more like physical and hands-on activities.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I also do like the idea of the ecosystem, so that like eventually, if you want to be the destination, if you have sort of like a foot in every door, that way the like everyone knows that once you guys are trusted and you do everything, they will come to you. But sort of as a side question, only because it is one of my areas of interest, do you see any scope for sort of VR or AR in combination for digital ones and your physical games?
Interesting question. I think that it's something that we've obviously looked at in terms of this whole realm of hybrid products. Um, but I think the technology is very exciting, but especially on the VR side of things. But again, again, we don't take the lens of like this is awesome technology, let's integrate it and make a product out of it, right? I think our starting point is always like, what is the consumer's real problem? Like for example, like a parent of a 3 to 6 year old wants to help the child learn how to write, and given that that's the problem, the best way to solve it would be this product, and that's how we designed our write and wipe activity map range. So I think that's how we think of it. We are actually increasingly adding digital interactions to our products, again wherever we feel it enhances the value. And like it could be as simple as like in our STEM line of products, you can scan a QR code, and instead of reading like an instruction manual on how to build a microscope, you can actually get a video. That's a simple digital interaction, but it again simplifies the customer's experience and enhances it overall. So I think that's how we think of it, right? And so if there is something that can be done better or significantly enhanced through AR VR, we would of course look at it. But I think it's not something that we sort of start off saying that, look, this is like now and now let's build a product around it. We always look at like customer out.
Yeah, that goes back to the idea of like a brand is as much about what to do as it is about what not to do. So
Yeah.
sometimes people fail to make that distinction, but yeah, I completely agree. So in the blog section of Skillmatics, I read something that stood out to me was a piece on autism. And obviously now children face all kinds of neurological and physiological conditions. So is that something that you guys need to account for? I mean, I don't know, regulation wise, or maybe something that you guys look at anyway?
No, it's actually an increasing. It's a problem that's often not spoken. I wouldn't even go to the extent of autism. I would actually even say that learning difficulties is actually a really widespread phenomena, right? And whether it's ADHD, um, there is a very large set of children today who essentially are not tailored for, right? Because curriculums are obviously, at least the traditional school environment is very sort of one size fits all, right? That's how the education system has been historically built out, and that's clearly inefficient because I mean it makes no sense. I mean everyone learns at different paces and so on. The way we look at it at Skillmatics is that, look, firstly, we aren't primary alternative to education, right? Our brand is a trusted partner to supplement your child's journey, in their early years. And so, as we expanded, initially we obviously started with products that would be applicable to the majority of children that in the markets that we cater to. But increasingly what our team is working on is is how do we build products that specifically like, help children with disabilities as well. And so, I think that there's a big gap out there, and there isn't a solution. And I think that's something that we are actively looking at. But again, it's in early stages of like our research right now, because we also need to be like very clear on how do we then either customize or tailor the product to help suit that those set of children. So it's something that we've noticed as a large addressable opportunity, and hopefully in a couple of quarters we'll have something specifically to address that use case or that problem that a parent has.
And that is a very sensitive area. So, I mean, it does require a lot of research, a lot of time, etc. So I think now Skillmatics has been on for 4 years approximately. And obviously there will have been a lot of things that sort of didn't go the way you expected them to when you started, some good, some bad. So what is the one thing that stands out to you that, a good thing that you didn't expect in the last 4 years?
So yeah, you're right. I mean, I think we've launched about 3 years now in like since we've been live, and of course there've been a lot of ups and downs. I mean, I don't think any journey is a straight line. If I had to say that one thing that I'm incredibly proud of as we built the business is that we've business, and I think that's something that I'm extremely proud of. We were profitable before we got funded, and even now we run a profitable enterprise, and I think that in an era of like growth at all costs, and sometimes not having sound economic engines, we built a very strong economic engine, and at the same time been able to grow our business exponentially, right? We've grown 11x year on year this year. If I compare 2020 to 2019, and still manage to be profitable. So I think that that you can either grow or like build like sound economics. Again, one size fits all because it varies on the type of business, the market. But I think that's one thing that I'm proud of, and I think that's one thing that's done that we've done a good job at.
All right, cool. So that was our last question. Now let's move on to the rapid fire round. So, I mean, I think you know the general gist of rapid fire rounds. So, all right, so let's start. iPad or notebook? What do you prefer?
iPad.
All right, what's your favorite social media platform?
Social media platform. Is LinkedIn counted as a social media platform?
Most of the people we speak to end up saying LinkedIn. Which hobby of yours did your company kill?
Well, none actually.
Oh, that's amazing. I think, yeah, that is, again, it's the idea of work and life balance that I guess you've got right. So that's good. Congratulations. How many enemies have you made in the process?
None. Again, extreme. I mean, none. I wouldn't say. Not that I think of anyone as an enemy. Let's put it that way.
All right. What is the weirdest place from where you have worked?
I took a call in a bathroom in an airport, like a Zoom call. So that was perhaps I actually adjusted myself weirdly so that the side of the door was the backdrop. Yeah, that was perhaps the weirdest thing I've ever had to do.
That's awesome. How many all-nighters did you pull in your first year?
Not many in our first year, but I think because a lot of the first year was just we just incorporated the company. We were figuring out the business, but I think and subsequently definitely a lot. Maybe maybe one every couple of a month or two. I don't know. It's like I don't know the exact number.
Okay, so that's interesting that yours has been an increasing number of all-nighters as compared to the usual. Oh yeah, we sat up 24 hours, at least 10 days in our first year or something like that. But yeah, cool. So concludes our final segment, and we'd really like to thank you for giving us your time. You were an absolutely great guest, amazing answers. Is there something you'd like to leave our audience with, either a motivational quote or some kind of learning?
Oh no, I mean, I don't think I'm anyone to sort of dole out advice. I just think that, if there's one thing that I've learned is that in whatever you're, at least, I mean, this is advice that was given to me, so I'm sort of passing that on. Is that at least in the world we live in, I guess one of the most underrated qualities is patience. And I think that whether you're whatever career path we all decide to take, and we're all fairly young, right? I think that that's something that you should sort of think about a little bit, because good things take a little bit of time.
Okay, I love that. That's gonna be our title for your video. Good things take a little bit of time. But yeah, again, absolutely lovely having you on board, Dhvanil.